Thank you so much for everybody being here this early morning, wherever you are, in I think mostly North America. I know you're North American heritage at risk, but from what I understand, you have some European partners. Anyway, it's a pleasure. I am going to try to not talk too much at you. I have a little presentation, but then otherwise we're going to actually play part of the game or a version of the game to kind of give you an idea. And yeah, and then I'm going to try to leave as much time at the end, about 15 minutes at least, for just open questions and sharings. And perhaps if you have you want to see how you can apply this to your work or something like that.
Where are you this morning? I think our listeners would be interested to know.
So I'm calling you from my very small bedroom in Paris, in France. I've been here for 11 years, but I spent a long time in Florida, in fact, working for UCF. And I was born in Pittsburgh. So if there's any Pennsylvania or Florida people, I know at least two of you are Florida. So real quick before I start my little presentation, I would love to hear real quick as a warm up in the discussion, if you could just share one word for you that describes climate science. So the question, what is climate science to you in one word? Okay, collaborative. Exploration. Important, cool. As you think about that, sort of scary, that's okay. And also, I should have probably already said this. Not only will we be talking about the pedagogy, but we're going to be learning about climate science, and this is a non-judgmental zone. Traumatizing, logistics oriented, okay, integrated. Okay, excellent. So this is also a safe space for negative emotions, not just positive. So I want you to all feel comfortable and open today. Excellent. Citizen involvement, excellent. Yeah, imperative, excellent. Also, if you, I know that you're all working to protect North American heritage. How many of you actively have climate science programs or do climate science activities with the public, various publics? If you do, put a little +1 or a thumbs up, maybe +1 in the discussion, or maybe also feel free to share. You might already know each other's projects, but feel free to share your projects in the discussion. Okay, cool. Cool. So we have definitely have some educators here. Okay, cool, excellent. Cool. Well, that's just to set the stage. So climate science, the thing about climate science that's super important to know, and you might already know. Oh, we have a hand up. David?
No, my apologies. I'm learning how to use the emojis.
It's okay. I like it though. I like it. I like it.
Thank you.
So the thing that you may already know, but I'd like to reiterate, is that climate science is complex. I wouldn't say it's emerging, because of course we've known about it for a long time, but like all sciences, we are learning as we go. And it's also a cross section of many other sciences. So it's physics, not only sciences, so physics and chemistry and biology and all that, but also of course, social sciences, social impacts. And so today I'm going to be talking to you mostly about, so I facilitate many different workshops. So I'm going to share also just in general my approach and my learnings as a climate science educator and facilitator. I prefer to say facilitator, but I'll be focusing mostly on my main tool that I use called Climate Fresk, which is based off of the IPCC report. Who here knows about the IPCC report? The UN-backed IPCC report? Yeah, okay. I'll talk more about it just briefly, but Climate Fresk is only based off of that source. It's a card game. And yeah, that's a little bit of a teaser, but first I want to talk, it's just a little bit of teaser. Let me share my screen. So anyway, so it's the tool that I use honestly the most. And to be honest, I played it 2 years ago, and that's what made me want to change my whole career and not just do coaching in general, but do coaching that includes climate science and social concerns. So I personally, it's a topic very close to my heart. Okay, cool. So here's the official slideshow part of this morning, though I'm going to try to keep it as interactive as possible. Can everybody see my screen? Good. Okay, cool. Excellent. Okay, so that's you and me, and we're going to talk about climate literacy. So in particular, at Climate Fresk and with this tool, we don't only want to spread climate literacy because we feel very strongly that the topic is not understood enough, but also empower action. So it's not just awareness, but also empowering action. And I'll talk about how we do that. So the plans, we had a little bit of a warm up. We're going to talk about the Fresk. What are some blockers to climate science or climate change action? What's our pedagogy? What is the Fresk? So have some patience. I might not explain exactly what the Fresk is until a little bit later. And I might, and then we're going to go in and actually test out this and test in a very non-judgmental way your climate science knowledge. And then we're going to leave some time at the end for just open discussion and questions. Because yeah, this is all today will be exploring climate change discussions and their importance and educational approaches. What is the Climate Fresk? And also I definitely want to learn more about you as well, especially towards the end in the open sharing portion. So some of it, some of your reactions are honestly were quite reframed in a different way. But this is often the reaction, what I'm putting on the screen right now is the reaction we get from climate science. And I saw some of these terrifying, overwhelming. Oh, I already know about that. I already believe in it. I'm already on the good side. I already know it. I don't need to spend some time learning on it. It's not my first priority. It's for other people. So a graph that a chart that we talk a lot about in the Climate Fresk facilitator community is the triangle of inaction. Oh, it's the government. Oh, it's the individuals. Oh, it's the corporation. So always pointing at each other. Also often it's seen as suffering or subtractive, or I don't want to know about it. Often the ostrich, which is understandable because it's also a psychological protection mechanism that I don't want to learn about it because if I learn about it, then I might have to suffer. I might have to and one of our roles, and I guess is one of overall what I've learned in climate education is that we need to reframe this discussion in general, and we need to reframe the climate crisis in general, how we look about it. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, you might very much recognize the triangle of inaction. You might very much recognize that. So, because as you said, climate science and action is essential. It can be actually joyful. I'm a big believer that it is joyful. Once we start getting into these self-feeding, self-respecting, societal respecting, aligned with our value practices, it's constructive and protective. So it's not necessarily taking away, it's actually leaving space for other things. When we do have to, I won't lie, you do have to change things in your life that are comfortable, but it creates a newer, more sustainable comfortability and actually opportunities. It's for everyone. So even the people that are on the quote unquote good side, that's another thing we really try. There has been a very strong decision by Climate Fresk to make it as neutral as possible. Everybody is involved, from climate deniers to experts to non-experts at all. It is for everyone. We all have something to learn. Even the facilitators ourselves, we're always learning. And everybody has their part, whether maybe even if you're not a big producer of pollution or carbon dioxide or these other things that create climate change, it doesn't mean that not learning climate science doesn't enrich your life and can actually be a form of revolution and rebellion by acting. We also recognize that it's complex, but we don't see that necessarily as a bad thing. That is just the reality, and it's something that needs to be understood and explored, and can actually be exciting, even though there are some pretty harsh realities. It can be uniting and self-feeding. And most importantly, it's empowering, which I believe someone said in the chat something to that. Citizen involvement, so integrated. Yeah. Anyway, so that's a little bit, and you may already be convinced
For me, you're breaking up a little, Sheila, and I wonder if your camera is off.
A little bit what motivates us or you might want to look at that one and start this, because one for each of the goal. Okay.
I think she will join us back very quickly. I was trying to say to turn the camera off, but I wasn't getting it out fast enough. But fascinating, and I was looking up the website, so while we wait for her to come back on, I will put that in the chat. And how great to think of, already my mind is thinking of other organizations or places that would be so great just to have this approach used. Emily Jane, you were thinking of some places to do the Fresk.
Yeah, I proposed that maybe the Heritage at Risk Committee through SEAC could host some of the workshops for folks. So.
Yeah, or to maybe even add a workshop or get some. I like the, do you know the facilitator training? Do they go do facilitator training workshops, or that's very one-on-one?
Yeah, and a lot of the folks who facilitate are like, no one, it's this whole big volunteer organization basically. So everyone, I guess it's kind of like Project Archaeology, where you like do the basic workshop, and then if you're like really excited about it, you can become a facilitator through a little bit of training, and then.
Hey, I'm so sorry.
No problem. I was trying to turn your camera off to see if it would save bandwidth, but we chatted through it and shared the website, and Emily Jane was sharing some, so you're good to go.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I mean, it's true. One of the best parts to understand this game is also those who have played in it. Okay, so I'm going to keep my my video off for now. So can you hear me? Is it good?
Yes.
Okay, so that to save bandwidth. Okay, it's also more ecological. Okay. Okay, can you see my slideshow again?
Yep.
Loading. Okay, so we all know climate science is important. What is the formula for Climate Fresk, which is a card game? So I'll talk about more what it is later, but it is a card game. It is a therapeutic art activity, and it's a solution workshop all rolled in one. First of all, the first thing we do when people enter into the workshop is we set the stage that this is based on a scientific recognized authority. We rarely honestly have that many climate deniers. We have people that are a little skeptical, but we say, you know, for now, know that this is all in one source. It's recognized. We explain what it is, all our source right in the beginning. And that definitely helps fluidify the rest of the workshop. We make it a safe space. So we definitely, in all our communication, everything, we make it very, very clear. Everybody is welcome to come, be vulnerable and learn. So we also actually set up opportunities in the game to be wrong, because it's actually looking at the science of learning. It's actually sometimes through failure that we learn best, and also to not see that as failure. It's a very interactive game. It's fun, it's creative, it's tactile. So even when it's done online, so it can be done online, the fact that the people themselves are moving the cards. So that's another thing that's super important about our pedagogy, is that a facilitator is not an expert top down at all. They're giving the cards, and for a grand majority of the workshop, they're not talking at all, which also means that there's a lower barrier entry for then those who participate to become facilitators themselves. I'll talk about that later, but it is an open commons game where once you play, you can become a facilitator. It's a collective experience. So a part of our pedagogy is collective, very much collective intelligence, and a group and a small group workshop. Also, part of our pedagogy as we do the workshop is we want to raise up voices. There's no hierarchy, so we make it very clear from the beginning there's no hierarchy, and we want to honor diversity. And so often as facilitators, we won't answer questions even if we know them, because we're like, ask other people in the group, what do you think? So it's very much about getting people interactive, already practicing, being able to explain climate science and how it relates to them, share their own personal anecdotes, and also bring to the table, because everybody, like I said, every single workshop I've done, not only has it been very different, though, you know, we have a core tool, it's very different, and I also learn a lot as facilitators. We also strive to make it pertinent. So this is something we've definitely learned, that the most successful ones of our workshops are those that ensure that they have as many of the participants sharing personal anecdotes, and also linking it to news stories, local news stories, and also pertinent to their own social economic status and just in general their situation. Also, this game is quite interesting because it already gives them a taste, a first experience in collective respectful action. So already at the end, we're boosting them up, and we mean it. We're like, already you spent 3 hours. So a spoiler alert, it's a 3-hour workshop. You spent 3 hours working with others to learn more and come up with solutions. Like, first of all, go you. Second of all, this is what awaits you in the activist community, and just the concerned citizen community. We also make it an opportunity. So we make sure it's very, even though it can be very terrifying at the end, that in the middle, that especially that by the end they feel, at least they know exactly when they leave what they can do. And it's not an end, but a step forward. And in fact, actually an opportunity, because they can also go on and do this workshop for others, make it accessible. So it's very low cost, and it can be very low tech. And one thing also I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to try to actually wrap this up because I want to make sure that we practice this, is we cover emotions and solutions. That is a very, very, very important part of our pedagogy, and is one of the biggest things I wanted to share with you today, is that please do not, if you don't, I mean, you might already do this, but do not forget that it's not just science, that science also is linked to the heart. It does have effects, and so we need to honor this during our sessions. And then also, of course, the solution portion. So we have a 3-step approach. So first, people are given cards, and they, as a group, in 5 sets, slowly put these cards in order from cause to consequence. So that's touching the brain. There's a holistic view, and then already they, through the anecdotes and seeing the cards, such as human activities, they can be like, okay, where is my place in this system? And also because they are cool. Yeah. Emotions are difficult in a public engagement. Yes, exactly. And so I'll try to give you some tips also about engaging with emotions if you'd like that, especially maybe we'll talk about that at the end after we test this. So, and then the second part is the heart. So that's a thing that's important. So this was created by a teacher and a professor 5 years ago, Cedric Ringenbach in France, though now it's all over the world. And the cards themselves must stay the same, and you are required to at least have a heart portion and a hands and leg portion. So it is required to do this, and it takes at least 2.5 hours, but ideally 3 hours. Otherwise, if the people are not able to come and commit the 3 hours, we feel like it might not be the time. This workshop might not be the time and the space for them at that moment. Though we do have the quiz format, which you'll test today, which kind of gives them a taste. Or we often use the quiz to get people honestly in the door. That's still something we're working through. And we have a couple tips, and we can talk about this at the end, of how to get people in the door to talk about very serious topics. I think in general, our biggest success has been because we are so auto-organized and auto-empowering, and it's basically friends telling friends, doing it for friends. That is what finally, and then them seeing their friends go on and be joyful because of their experience, that makes people enter the door and commit that time. So yeah, it's always required to touch the heart and the hands, because it's very important. So we realize that our job is to help people through, we're not psychologists, but still we are facilitators of the stages of change. And when people come in, and often we even talk about this very transparently in the workshop at the end, is that people come in at various levels of denial, anger, decision, integration. You might know these stages from the stages of grief. And so not only do we recognize that the participants might be in this process, but also they might come into contact with people later on. Also, of course, in these stages, also whole societies and organizations can be in a stage. So for example, what do you think North America, USA, Canada, what stage are they in? That could be a question to them, and I even ask you. So this is a very important part of us. And also during the workshop, we recognize that not only is this not linear, but during the workshop, they go through this process. So even if they think they already know, often usually they do hit a shock portion, some denial, definitely anger, some negotiation. I've had people in tears by the middle part of it. And so that's why it's really important to honor and get them moving towards at least acceptation, experimentation by the end. And also a note about this is also pushing collective action, because it's also proven that not only is collective action extremely important in climate science, in fact, 75% of the progress that we need has to be collective action to change our societies, but also it's self-feeding. So those who act together are more likely to keep on going. Yeah, so these denial, anger, is that the USA? Or maybe your sides? Okay, cool. So I'm going to try to, I have more slides, but I think it's more important that we test this out. So just to get real quick, I'm going to go through these real quick, just what it is before I go to the quiz. So it's interactive card game. We have a kids version. We want to spread climate literacy. Our goal is 1 million, and we think we'll hit it within the next year. It's a Creative Commons tool that only a percentage is required to give back to the association for their activities if you use it for a business. Otherwise, it's free. It's based off the IPCC report, which is global consensus. It's a Nobel Peace Prize winning. It is the report, UN-backed, neutral to no government, one government backs it. All governments back it versus just one. And also what's really important, and I guess is one of my messages, how can you create community as much as possible? So one of our biggest forces is our vibrant community of citizen facilitators, which are 10,000 worldwide currently. So you just have to print out some cards, get around a table with a big piece of paper and play it. It's up to 8 people per facilitator, or you can do it online. You'll kind of get a taste of that with what we're about to do. It's 3 hours. So here, for example, is an example of the first portion where they're building the system view. So it's using the pedagogy concept mapping. Then we decorate it. So here's an example of one. So every single time it looks different. I really suggest, and if you don't already, to include art and expression. And it's a very vital part of education and moving forward with societal change. This is one of my favorite ones. You can kind of almost see it, but they actually made a heart out of their system view. It can be online. So this is a version of the online. Then goes into emotion, and then we talk about solutions. The solution portion is once again made to be adaptable to the audience. And the thing that's super, super important is that it is adaptable to the audience, that is in the image of the audience and the facilitator. Here are some of the questions I usually like to ask in the solution portion, including what makes me happy and emits little CO2 that I can do more of. So feel free if you want to answer that in the chat right now. But we try to really get them focused on, okay, you can actually do more of these things while combating the climate crisis, which is an intersectional being. Kayaking is great. I love dancing. And I'm like, I can dance even more if I'm not upholding this system. Canoeing, that's great. I love canoeing as well. I don't get to do it often in Paris. I like dancing. I'm glad you like to watch me dance. Walking. So all these things. So these are the kind of question is to also, so that's a little bit of the tip, is to start getting them thinking about, what can they do, solution oriented, constructive, even though it may seem bleak, this is actually an opportunity, even though there is definitely way too much damage that is already happening going on, and it's not going to be, Anyway, last thing I want to actually, so basically we're a community. So this is us. We went to COP26 with 150 of us. Hold on, I'm just going to go through these. We do humongous, so even though it's 8 people at a time, we do humongous events where everybody plays at the same time. So this was 1,500 people who played at a university this last September. And what we do is that we go in and we help train the facilitators within the school. So it becomes an auto playing games, so then they can do it next semester with their own facilitators in the university. So it's all about empowering people. We have people playing this with politicians, with government officials, with experts, with banks, with their me with my family, like Emily Jane. And we've now reached 269 people, 1,000 people worldwide, and about 322 people play this per year, and that's all within the last 3 years, and we're in many different languages, and this is all spread thanks to the community. So I wanted to go through that as fast as possible. Sorry for the bugs in the technical stuff. I'm sorry if I'm bulldozing over any of the questions you might have, but let's go in and let's test this out. Okay, and then we'll still have, let me look at the time. We'll still have at least a good 10 minutes at the end for FAQ. Though, of course, if there's something urgent and burning, please don't hesitate, put on your microphone and ask. And in fact, I would like to invite everybody right now to open your microphone if you're in a relatively quiet space, because this is now your time to play. We're going to play a quiz version of the Climate Fresk. So kind of what I said earlier. Well, in general, this community has generated many different forms of this game, and also sister workshops. Like Emily Jane mentioned, I created one with some other people on Textile. And one of the things they've created is a quiz version to get people excited. So you're going to get to play this game. And it doesn't have all the cards. We're also not going to probably, okay, so this gives you an idea. So this does not have all the cards. It's about 30 of the cards. There's 42 total normally, 30 in the kids version, which starts with age 8 up. And so this is just to give you an idea of what it's like. And we're going to play guess what's the next card. So this is cause and consequence. We already see some cards in the middle, additional greenhouse effect, CO2 emissions. We have in the beginning causes, and at the end consequences. And I'm going to start quizzing you. So is everybody ready? Microphones on.
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah. Woo! Okay. So first I want to ask you, and just speak freely, because we're also a good, 8 people, that's perfectly fine to speak out loud, and you're not gonna bulldoze each other. Would you like to start with causes or consequences?
Causes, causes maybe.
Causes, is that good for everyone?
Sure.
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 Okay, so we see in the system view additional greenhouse effect, which we're already giving you the hint. It's caused by CO2 emissions. I'll talk about that in a second, what that means. What things can create CO2 emissions?
Burning fossil fuels.
Cars.
Cars, okay. Hold on one second. I have to always check my cheat sheet to make sure that I'm revealing the right cards. So definitely fossil fuels. Okay, so I have a quick question for you, and then I'll get back to cars. So fossil fuels, why does this card start at 1850?
Industrial Revolution.
Exactly, Industrial Revolution. So it doesn't mean that fossil fuels haven't been used for a very long time. Can you give me some examples of fossil fuels?
Oil, gas.
Oil, gas, right? Natural gas is a fossil fuel. Exactly. Great marketing, calling it natural gas. I mean, it's technically natural. What else?
Coal.
Coal, exactly. So these are all things that are carbon based, that are usually deep down into the earth, that can be burned for energy. They've been used for many times, but there was a big, of course, increase since the Industrial Revolution. And then there was a big increase in 1950. Why is that?
People came home from the war and built the suburbs and invented air conditioning and population boom.
Yes, exactly. Not just, no, it's not so much the population boom, but it's the industrialization after World War II. In fact, it was a big mechanism of the economies, of course, to rebuild, especially by producing. Okay, so fossil fuels made out of carbon. So when you burn them, you get carbon emissions. So we were talking, okay, what's reliant on fossil fuels? So one thing could be transportation. Okay, so planes, cars, it could be, of course, there is now more and more other ways that you can be transported. What are some other things that are could be reliant on fossil fuels?
Electricity.
Electricity, but electricity for what?
The power grid.
Heat for what?
Houses?
Yeah, for houses. So that's also one thing nice about this this workshop, is that already you're going to get the top floor. We're talking about the top causes of CO2 emissions, and one of them is building usage. So that also means if these are the top causes, these are also the top solutions. So how do we heat our buildings? One major action, and I know France is looking at this, and it actually can be a good contributor for the economy, is building renovations. That's one of the best things you can do, and of course lowering your temperature. What's another thing that could be reliant on fossil fuels and creates emissions?
Automobiles.
Automobiles, so that's part of transportation.
Industry.
Industry, so stuff. Whether it's digital, there is an imprint to a digital. The cloud is a lie. It's actually a computer. It's not a cloud. It's somewhere. It was mined, it was created, but also just industry in general, generating stuff, which all these, and I'll go ahead and just show this card, are different kinds of human activities. Okay, and there's one that's missing, and actually it's related to what Meg said in the chat. Hold on, I'm gonna figure out which one I need to show for you. There you go. Other greenhouse gases such as methane. Does anybody want to explain to me, or know? Can you explain what methane is?
Cow farts.
Cow farts. By the way, number one tip in your climate science workshops, get people to say the word fart. They love it. They love it. That being said, it's actually not farts though. So what
Fracking.
is it? What?
Fracking? I don't know.
Well, okay, fracking can lead to methane, but it can come from cows, but it's not their farts. What is it?
Belching.
Oh,
Belching. It's true. It's actually fake news. It's cow burps and not cow farts. And why is that? Well, how is methane created? Do you know, just chemistry wise, like what creates it?
breaking down nitrates. I'm trying to think of how a cow could be burping it from what they eat.
It's in their digestive system. They have, I think, 4 stomachs or something, and they're processing grasses. It takes a long time to break them down, so they're producing that very potent greenhouse gas methane in the process.
And so a decay, yeah, that's definitely part of the equation. Also, Meg says decay of organics. But what is missing in these stomachs that makes methane and not carbon?
Acid?
Do you know? No.
You are asking if I know, and no, I don't know.
It's okay. No, like I said, no, this is no judgment zone, no judgment. And plus, if you're thinking it, probably someone else is thinking it too. It's oxygen, it's lack of oxygen. So where else do you see methane creation? You see it in landfills. Why? Because it's layers and layers of organic material that's sandwiched in, no oxygen. And so because there's no, sorry. Thanks for coming, Lindsay.
Emma had something clever to say. Say it louder, Emma, because she's sitting far away from the computer.
I was going to say, I think I remember learning this from your Climate Fresk and about how landfills are actually contributing to more so the climate crisis itself because of the climate thing. So
100%. And like, so yeah, and that's why people say, thank you so much for sharing that, which by the way, please share, like I said, this is open anecdote sharing land and not top down. So that is why food waste is limiting food waste and eating what we buy and what we produce is can be a major climate action. Because we don't want to go in, or composting, but even then it's better if it's used in its original form, which is nutrition. But yeah, this material gets trapped in the landfills. There's no oxygen. It creates methane. There's another thing, well, actually, okay, so we talked about methane. We see some other things. What is a big producer that's a human activity that is related? So what is this card between human activities, other greenhouse gases?
Products, or like I'm thinking hairspray, or I'm thinking of things that get trapped in the ozone.
You get hints from the card photos. No.
Farming, agriculture.
Farming and agriculture. Okay, so farming and agriculture has less of a link with fossil fuels. I mean, yeah, it's used a little bit, and more with other greenhouse gases. Though they do contribute to CO2 emissions, how do they contribute to CO2 emissions? What is this card right here?
Clearing all the land so you can have cows in fields.
Exactly. Deforestation. So deforestation is about 80% comes from agriculture. Can you explain, does anybody can explain to me why that leads to CO2 emissions? Deforestation? How do you normally deforest?
Burning trees.
Burning trees, exactly. And when you burn a tree, what happens?
CO2 is emitted. And it all goes into the air.
Right, exactly. So all the CO2 that has ever been trapped by the trees is let into the air. So there's a statistic that in 10 minutes of burning of ancient forests, 100 years of CO2 is released. And so that's why you see on this card CO2 emissions, that actually 10% of CO2 emissions is from deforestation. So what can we get from this? Well, we have these human activities. They're not necessarily, honestly, bad in themselves, but it's these practices that are adding extra gases into our atmosphere. One other gas that's just real quick that's linked to agriculture. Can you guess what it is? It's pictured by the little tractor dude. What's another greenhouse gas? Or is there other greenhouse gases you know that you can list off?
Nitrogen?
Fluorocarbons.
Fluorocarbons. I don't like fluorides, like gases, like refrigeration gases, or
Yeah.
yeah. That those are one. I don't know it by that name, but I believe you. I don't know there's many greenhouse gases. In fact, water is a greenhouse gas. But there was one in particular I was thinking, and it's linked to nitrogen. It's also used at the dentist's office.
Oh, nitrous oxide.
Yeah, nitrous oxide. So that is the used in fertilizers. So let's talk. So what I would propose, if it's okay, we'll go like a couple more minutes. I want to still leave some time for discussion at the end. If we leave at least 5 minutes at the end, is that okay?
Works for
Or
me.
would you rather that we go back into the Zoom right now?
No, works for me.
Okay, so we'll try to at least give you a taste also of not just the causes, but some of the consequences. But before that, I wanted to real quick clear up, or maybe one of you can clear up. Why does that say additional greenhouse effect? And can you explain what the greenhouse effect is?
It's the trapping. There's trapping of heat.
Trapping. That's great. That's great. Great and simple. I love it. Do we have any other guesses? That's definitely true.
Would additional mean the unnatural part? Like obviously with the sun heating the earth, greenhouse gases evaporate, I don't know, something like that. And so additional is what's not related to just that natural process.
How much? Yes, that's definitely true. And okay, so there is some natural greenhouse effect. How much colder would we be without the greenhouse effect on average around the world? And I am going to try to remember what it is in Fahrenheit. Though you're all scientists, you probably know it. Celsius.
4 degrees.
4 degrees. Do we have other guesses?
4 degrees Celsius or 4 degrees Fahrenheit?
I don't know. I'm trying to go high and low, so both.
It's about
I
one
think
and a
that it
half
would be,
to 2 degrees Fahrenheit.
I think it would be more than that. I think it'll be like at least 10 degrees Celsius, right? But aren't other planets a lot colder because they don't have the same atmosphere that we do?
I just realized you're seeing everything that I'm saying. I was just doing the conversion. Shoot. Ignore that. Ignore
Good thing
that.
I wasn't looking.
So the answer is actually negative 33 degrees Celsius. So it's more than 4 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
It turns out that space is really cold. It's just really, really cold. And so a great metaphor for the greenhouse effect is that it's a blanket. So it traps in the heat. Exactly. Sorry, I think Sarah talked in the beginning and I didn't catch the name of the other person who spoke, but
yeah, or maybe David.
But yeah, so it's a blanket. A greenhouse effect is a blanket. We need this blanket. We have sun entering. Some of it reflects off, but some of it gets trapped. That's the red arrows, and we like that. That is good. What we don't like is the additional greenhouse effect. It's like every CO2 is a feather that is added. And every methane, how many feathers would that be equivalent to when we add that to the greenhouse effect? How many feathers? So if CO2 is 1 feather to this blanket, how many feathers do you think methane is? I'll give you a hint. It's more than 1.
9.
And we're looking, it has a faster decay rate. So we're looking at like a 100-year scope. Thank you so much, David. Have a great day. So it would be 25 to 35 feathers. And nitrous oxide?
Is nitrous oxide even more than that?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, so like 50 feathers?
It's about 125. So that is why you'll especially hear with COP26, there is more and more things cracking down on methane, but also looking at our farmer practices. Okay, so I'm going to reveal maybe one more card that's related to, actually here, I'll show it here. How many people are based in Florida that I'm talking to? Is there a lot, or am I just using the the assumption because I know Emily, Jane, and Sarah?
I think a third are in Florida.
They are South Carolina. Okay, so coastal. Okay.
California.
So California. Okay, currently in Jersey. Okay. So you all have a link with the ocean prep. So this card, I'm going to just go ahead and show it. This card is carbon sinks. So whatever has been created, that's a big message of the Climate Fresk, is whatever has been created has to go somewhere. The CO2 has to go somewhere. It goes into the atmosphere. It traps heat. That heat has to go somewhere. And what does that do to our planet? This is upside down because it shows that the carbon has to go somewhere. So it goes into carbon sinks such as the ocean. A quarter goes into the ocean. Half goes into the atmosphere. A quarter goes into photosynthesis. Can you tell me what that leads to when it goes into the ocean?
Acidification.
Exactly. And acidification, what does that most affect?
Increased salts, kills plants, migrates things around.
Right. So kills them. Why? Do you know why?
Well, probably less oxygen, and the things that would oxidize in there would probably go faster.
I'm not 100% certain on that part. That could be definitely true. They do something very specific to certain animals, like
Coral reefs.
And one in particular about coral reefs and other things like that. Like I'll give you an example: photoplankton and zooplankton. Also it affects them.
Yeah.
Do you know?
No, I don't know.
It actually makes them harder for them to create their shell. So calcification. So coral and all of them can't make their shell. And of course, whenever the bottom of the food chain and supporters of the food chain are not there, what happens? So photoplankton and phytoplankton.
It all falls apart.
Yeah.
Marine biodiversity. And what then can that lead to? If there's lower marine biodiversity, knowing that 1 billion people are reliant on food, seafood as their essential, and usually in the global south coastal regions, they're relying on seafood as their main source of food.
Shortages.
Yeah, famine. Starvation. So I hate to leave you on that note because that's very, 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 very serious. But already what that means is that, okay, these people that are having famines, maybe they are based off of seafood. What could have caused it? Oh, well, how does that loop back? And once again, what is our place in, and how can we perhaps see our human activities differently moving forward, and even as an opportunity for innovation? So we only have like 2 minutes left. Oh my gosh. But I'm going to stop sharing. If you'd like to turn on your camera or not, it's as you like, and I'll leave the floor open. And I guess if there's just maybe one question or a thought or inspiration to respect your time. But if not, feel free to contact me.